I was in London years ago doing a television show when Side by Side was down in the West End, and I went to see it, and I couldn't get the music out of my head. For days and days and days, I was humming and singing this fabulous music, and that's actually my first introduction to Steve.
I think I must have been a kid in the Philippines, and I think it was Sen and the Clowns playing on the radio. Because, and I didn't know anything about a Lil Night music. And it's a test of just how good the music is, because you can pull the song out of the show and take it at complete face value. And I remember it being sung a lot in the Philippines as a really beautiful song.
My very first musical I was ever in was A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, which was, by the way, just a really fun show to do when you're a young person.
I'm sure my first Sondheim music was pre-memory, pre-birth maybe, in the womb when my parents were listening to West Side Story, or it lives in our DNA.
I think my very earliest Sondheim song that I remember is Comedy Tonight, which we did in Miss Thompson's third grade class.
The very first time I heard a Sondheim show was West Side Story. And I didn't know at the time that it was anything to do with Stephen Sondheim. Particularly the lyrics I was really intrigued by.
The first musical I ever saw was Company. I was 10 years old, and I went with my mom and my aunt, and I think, while I think I missed some of the main themes, I was completely enraptured by the piece.
So anyone who doesn't know anything about Stephen Sondheim needs to come and see this show, because it's an introduction, and it's an incredible introduction into his canon of music.
I do think it weaves through beautifully the whole show. It's very clever what Cameron and Julia and yourself did.
You don't need to know the show that it's from or the characters or anything like that, but the lyrics are enough and the performances are enough to tell you that story.
You know, so many of the songs you might listen to within the context of a show, and you're presenting that character, but it may have an element of that character, but ultimately it's from our own perspective as well.
Like a window into what Sondheim's about in these singular songs that we do, because we're not doing replicas from the show.
No. I get to sing Loving You, which in Passion is one thing. When they give it to me to sing, it's like, you sing this about something else.
We have like 3 Broadway debuts, which, by the way, I think is something that Steve would love.
And I think Steve would love these young people, and they're so talented, and they were handpicked by Cameron and Matthew. And they're just a beautiful addition to the show.
Sondheim's not elitist, you know. There's a universality in everything that he wrote.
You know, the musical opens with Bernadette speaking about Sondheim, and Cameron touches on it too, about how Stephen always wanted his music and his shows to be shared with everyone and to entertain.
I did the show in the West End. It has to be here. It has to come to New York. Stephen Sondheim, the New Yorker, right? Yeah.
I'm a big believer that theater changes lives, wherever you are and whatever, and this one is ready to do that.